Welcome back to They Did What? Your source for the internet's craziest, most entertaining stories, where I go over them, analyze them, and most certainly make fun of them. Today I'm going to go over a story that was actually sent over to my SSM channel, but given the subject matter of open marriage and all that, that'd be more appropriate over here. Long story short, this is about a guy. He hasn't been married that long. I think he's in his late 20s, married for a year and a half, and already the wife is asking him about an open marriage, trying to sell him on how great it would be, how beneficial, how it's made her friend's marriage better. Bunch of nonsense. And we all know what that means. And it's all about how the guy, what he deals with it, how he deals with it, what he does and all that. And ultimately, you're going to say it doesn't end up very well for her. But other than that, I'm not going to say much more because it's a very long story. And to no surprise, this is part one of multi-parts, guys, which I'll do throughout the day. So without further ado, jumping into it, says here, hello SSM. My name is Richard, I'm 27. My wife Janet is 26. We've been married just short of a year and a half. Happily, or so I thought. We met when I was 22 and just out of college. I was working for a lamp manufacturer, scheduling production runs, and Janet was working at the local hospital as an intake clerk in their in and out surgery department. Working at a hospital, we know what that means. Not good. This is how I met her. I went in for a procedure. I walked in one day to the reception desk for my appointment just before 1 p.m. and a girl with blonde hair was sitting behind the desk looking down at her keyboard. I said hello and she looked up. She was about my age and damn good looking. She made a big smile and said, "What can I do for you?" I told her I was here for my appointment and gave her my name. She asked if I had anything to eat or drink for the past 6 hours. No, I did not. Any liquids in the last 2 hours? No. She looked at me and asked, "Where's your ride home?" I looked confused, so she continued. "They're going to put you under so you can't drive afterwards." This is true. They do. They want you to not eat for 6 hours. Usually it's longer than that because I've had surgery. And also they might want to make sure you have a good ride home. But then again, nowadays you can just take Uber or Lyft. She says, "We'll have to reschedule if you don't have anyone to drive you home." I stared at her trying to figure out who can I call and come and get me. Well, dude, you got to have some friends or family who can come and get you. She interrupted my thoughts by telling me that I'll have to reschedule unless I can point to a reasonable adult right now that I could leave the hospital with. And she smiled again. I asked her if there was any way to get around this, and she looked at me for a while and said, "Well, I get off at 4. You'll be finished by 3 or 3:30. If you want to wait, you can leave with me." I agreed to wait for her, and she smiled again and continued, "I'm in the mood for Italian and know the perfect place. You're paying, have a seat, they'll come and get you shortly." I have to wonder if that's against hospital procedure for her to do something like that. And usually after a surgical procedure, well, depending on what it is, I think you'd be going home, not going out to eat for Italian. But who knows, maybe it was just a minor, outpatient type of thing, who knows. When she got off work, I asked if she provides this service to everyone who doesn't need a ride home. She laughed and said, "No, you're the first." I asked her why me, and she said, "You look like you like Italian food and had enough money to buy dinner." Ding, ding, ding. She told me that, and while it's true, they wouldn't let me drive myself, I could have just called an Uber, blah, blah, blah. After that first dinner, we were inseparable. So, he had the surgery, everything's good, off to dinner. Janet was still living with her parents, but after about a year, she moved into my small 2-bedroom apartment with me. Smack! Way too soon. A year? Yeah, you're thinking about all the ass you're going to get on a regular basis, but the joke's on you. Other guys are going to get some ass, that's what's in her mind. And as I said, we married about a year and a half ago. It always bothered me that our relationship started with her telling me a lie, but not enough that I didn't marry her for 4 years later. 4 months ago, Janet got a new job at the hospital as a supervisor in the hospital lab. At the job that she had when I met her as an intake clerk, she worked 8 to 4 Monday through Friday. In and out surgeries were scheduled weekdays 8 to 5. Not so with the hospital lab. Patients coming through the ER and inpatients need lab work 24/7. A clerical had to be there to receive calls as well as handle patient input, post lab results, fill in patient charts, and bill for the lab work. The hospital didn't trust the techs to do the proper paperwork correctly, so they had staff there 24/7 to do the clerical work. Okay, which means she's probably new at it, so she has to take the shit hours. So Janet's schedule changed drastically. Janet's job came with a nice pay increase, but also different hours. She worked the 4 p.m. to midnight shift Monday through Friday. She had to work the day shift 8 to 4 p.m., one Saturday and Sunday a month. I was still 9 to 5, so weekdays Janet was at work. When I got home, and I was at work when she was at home. That sucks. But you know what? You gotta do what you gotta do. I mean, she's the rookie, so she's gonna have to take the hours they give her. But a loyal woman, okay, you guys make it work. A disloyal one is not gonna care and find a way to get her needs met. She'd arrive home after midnight when I was asleep. When we agreed that Janet should take the new job, we understood this would place a stress on our marriage. We decided to give it 1 year, and she'd find another job using whatever management credit her year as a supervisor gave her. Or we'd start a family and she'd become a homemaker. We'd stay where we were in 1 year. Okay, for a loving couple, 1 year is not the end of the world, but for someone that's disloyal, oh yeah. We were still living in the apartment I moved into after college, but we began saving for a down payment on our own place. First step is in starting a family. Janet started a new job 4 months ago. About 3 months ago, I started to notice little red flags. Here we go. Let's see if these red flags sound familiar to you boys. Those flags became brighter and brighter as time went on. Things with Janet started to change. When Janet started the new job, she'd get off at midnight and be home no later than 12:20. We lived about 10 minutes from the hospital, so her getting home by 12:30 was appropriate. I'd be in bed and Janet would tiptoe, trying not to wake me up. I was always awake, but I pretend I'm sleeping. It's difficult for me to sleep unless I know that Janet is home safe. Whenever I wake up at night, I look at the clock. I wasn't checking on Janet, it's just a habit, but I always know when Janet gets home. That's totally understandable. You know, you love her. She's your wife. You'll make sure she's okay. She can honestly text you when she's on the way home or something, you know. So 3 months ago, she started to get home from her shift later and later. One Tuesday morning, she came in or after 1:30. The following Friday, she came home just before 2 a.m. I got out of bed, followed her to the bathroom, and turned on the light. Her hair and clothes and makeup were fine. Nothing out of place. She jumped when I turned on the light, and she said, "I'm sorry, honey. Did I wake you?" She came to hug me, but I held her off. I asked why she's getting home so late. She said they had a bunch of emergencies come in right after her shift ended. Well, that's certainly plausible. It's a hospital, for goodness sake. You know, but she knows this. But it's interesting that none of these emergencies that kept her out so late happened before, up until all the other red flags are popping up. You gotta sometimes connect all these things to say something's up. She continued. The girl scheduled to take over at the midnight hadn't arrived, but when she did, she refused to take over the lab request. The clerk who accepts the lab work is supposed to stay until the lab work is complete and the results are posted. Usually the clerk coming in for the midnight shift takes over any uncompleted work for the clerk who's getting off. So she has all sorts of reasons for you, huh? A courtesy so the evening clerk doesn't have to hang around after the long shift. They're pretty lax about that stuff in the middle of the night. Not this bitch. So I had to stay until the lab work was finished, she said. The results posted and the paperwork completed. And I'm going to have to stay late until the gal who comes in at midnight is replaced with someone who doesn't have a stick shoved up her ass. She looked at me, exasperated, and asked, "Do you want me to quit?" I never see it and I'm always exhausted. I'd love to quit and have a baby. We agreed to do this for a year. I can start looking for something else now or just quit. She says, I'll be able to just find something now that pays less and have a dead-end job. But tell me what you want me to do and I'll do it. Wow, she's full of answers at 2 o'clock in the morning. I told her to stay in the job but begin looking for something else. We should take looking for a house more seriously and start thinking about starting a family. I mentioned Janet had a day shift from 8 to 4, one Saturday or Sunday a month. When she had to work on Saturday, she'd work her normal Friday shift until midnight, and then she'd get up in time to work the Saturday at 8 a.m. Oh, fuck that. On those Fridays, Janet was always home and in bed by 12:30. She was never forced to stay late to finish paperwork. On nights she had to get to work the next morning. This was the first red flag. Exactly. Gotta pay attention to these things, guys. If you don't, remember these sneaky types, they're masters of this shit, And you know what? They all help each other out, too. So time went on, and a little over 2 months ago, one Saturday morning, Janet got home from work on time. She climbed into bed and put her arms around me. She wasn't interested in sleeping. Neither of us had to work that Saturday, so we had some fun. After sex, I'm always ready to go to sleep. I get very drowsy, but Janet usually wants to talk. Yeah, what a stereotype. I don't know about you guys, but after doing the deed, I want to go to fucking bed. That's it. Turn over, go to sleep. I don't want to talk. God's sakes, I can talk all you want late in the morning. Well, no, that's not true. I don't want to talk in the morning either, but you guys know what I'm talking about here. That's okay. She talks while I drift in and out of sleep. Well, that pretty much sums it up. The Saturday morning, she wanted to have a very specific conversation. Oh boy, here we go. After our fun, she put her head on my chest and began rubbing my belly. Listen to it. Listen to this. God. Janet says she'd become close friends with one of the ER nurses, Ellen. The lab and the ER are next to each other, and when they're not busy, Ellen comes to the lab's reception desk where Janet sits and they talk. Janet continues, saying that Ellen has a very strange marriage. She says they have an open relationship and claims it saved their marriage. They're both much happier, and when they're together, it's almost like they're back on their honeymoon. Saved their marriage, huh? Uh-huh, okay. This guy's thinking, yeah. You're telling me this now when I'm half asleep, when you know on purpose that I'm not at my best. And also, last thing I checked, we didn't need to have our marriage saved. Janet paused, but I knew she was going to ask what I think. Before she could ask, I asked what an open marriage is. I know what an open marriage is, but I wanted her on record as to know exactly what she wanted to ask me about. When Janet gets the divorce papers, I don't want her to say she didn't understand what was meant by an open marriage. Nice job, dude. Already he's thinking, this ain't going to work, time for a divorce, but I'll let her talk. Janet said, well, they date other people. Have sex with other people. Then when they reunite, Ellen says their sex is wonderful. Better than it's ever been. Better for her. It's so good that Ellen says her husband doesn't even go out on dates. Her husband says Ellen completely fulfills him and he doesn't need other women. In case you haven't picked up on that, she's saying her friend, she goes out and hooks up all the time, but the husband sits at home like a good old boy and says he's so charged up from her dates, she pleasures him better. Oh, what a great deal. Ellen says that when she comes home from a date, it's like her and her husband are 18 years old all over again and ready to go all night. It literally saved their marriage. He's there like, you don't say, Janet paused again, getting ready to ask what I thought about this. Instead, I asked her what she thought. What she said next would determine if we remained married. She thought a minute and said, I can't stand the idea of you being with another woman. If you were with another woman, she better watch her back. So no open marriage for me, I guess. Please, full of crap. This is the whole thing in here. Guys, once they bring it up, it's over. They're already cheating, or they got somebody else in mind, which essentially is cheating anyway. So she asked me, do you feel the same? Would you be upset if I went out on dates? I have no interest in any other men. I'm just asking if you feel like I do. Newsflash, they say that, guys, they don't love you. I answered by telling her that I thought someone should put Ellen's poor husband out of his misery. She lifted her head off my chest and looked at my face. She was smiling, thinking I was joking. And he's like, bitch, I ain't kidding. When she saw my face, her smile disappeared and she realized that the conversation was over. Much larger red flag now, but at least she didn't tell me that she wanted to open our marriage. Yes, she did. That was just her roundabout way. That was her dipping the toe in the pool to test the temperature to see how we're going to handle it. Instead, she told me she did not. I let it go. I learned later that this whole conversation was scripted. Sex, then cuddle with me, and then wait until I'm still awake enough to plant the seed about how wonderful open marriages are, but drowsy enough that I'd only half remember what I said about it. Of course. Gentlemen, women aren't stupid. They can be very crafty when they want something, for better or worse. Also around this time, about 2 months ago, on a Saturday when she did have to work, she texted me that she was going for drinks with coworkers and she got off. Oh, the same girl that put this idea in her head, supposedly? This guy should be visiting the attorney at this point. And certainly if he was deciding to stay in the marriage, say, yeah, I don't want you hanging out with that chick anymore. No, it's not going to work. She asked me to meet her and gave me the address of the bar. I told her I'll pass, and she texted back that she'll be home by 8. I was furious. Janet got home from drinks about 8:30, much drunk, then sober. That pissed me off too, on multiple fronts. We had a huge fight. I told her we rarely see each other, and when we can, she goes out drinking. She replied, my coworkers always go for drinks after work. The ER nurses even go out for drinks after the midnight shift is over. They always ask me to go, but I never do. One girl text said that since I was management, I didn't want to socialize with mere workers. So I agreed to go with them. I'm going to have to do this at least occasionally just to keep things friendly at work. I love it if you meet us at the bar. No, she knew that he wasn't going to meet them. That's why she asked. I can let you know when I go out for drinks and you can join us. We agreed that she planned to go out with her coworkers, something we agreed would be a very, very rare occurrence. She'd let me know where they'd be. I could join them if I wanted to, but it wasn't a rare occurrence. Every Saturday, Janet has worked since then. The first time, she's gone out after work with coworkers. She always tells me where they're going and asks me to come along. Not my thing. But since I was only once a month for a couple hours, I let it go. Yeah, once a month turns into every week. So that brings us up to 3 weeks ago. Janet was asked to take a second Saturday shift after working the previous Saturday. It's unusual to have 2 weekend days in 1 month, but it happens. Janet texted once again that she was going out with coworkers when her shift ended. As usual, she told me which bar and asked me to join them. She knows you're not going to join them. And I haven't heard anything about you guys actually doing anything together. Except like your ships that pass in the night with your different schedules here. This is just not going to work. And even if you guys were on the same schedule and saw each other, this woman has no integrity or loyalty. She'd be finding other ways to cheat too. It isn't just because you don't see each other very often. I know some people might think that. I told her I was going out to a sports bar with friends to watch college games. I probably won't be home until 10. I lied. I thought it might be a good night to check in with Janet and her coworkers at the bar. Aha, time to do some recon. I arrived at the bar a little after 5:30, but couldn't find Janet. I saw one of her coworkers I had met before, and I approached her, introduced myself, and asked her if she had seen Janet. The coworker turned pale, but she thinks Janet went home. I thanked her and headed for the door. Yeah, that's because Janet's doing something else, and it is having drinks with coworkers. I glanced back at the coworker and saw her busily typing on her phone. She glanced up at me after she sent the text, but quickly looked away. I went home, no Janet, so I called her cell. She picked up right away, and I asked where she was. She said she was bored, so she left the bar and decided to go do some grocery shopping before coming home. Really? Grocery shopping on Saturday night? Uh-huh. And by the way, I mean she's drinking and driving. Fucking asshole. She asked where I was. Was I having fun with my friends? I said no, I'm at home. She said she's almost done and will be home soon. She arrived about 30 minutes later with some groceries, another red flag. 2 weeks ago, on Monday morning, Janet was watching me get ready for work, and she told me that some girls from work were going for a spa weekend the weekend after next. Here we go, the old spa weekend, huh? Girls' weekend. She was off that weekend and thought she should go with them. They leave Saturday morning and return Sunday night. I said we should spend that weekend together. The weather's still nice, and we can do whatever she wants. Forget the spa trip, Janet replied. I really need this. I'm exhausted all the time and need to do something but chill for a couple days. The idea of massages, mud packs, and sauna is very appealing. I'd rather spend that time with you, but I think the spa will be rejuvenating, she said. Besides, you bring up being together only when I want to do something. You go to the gym for hours on weekends when I'm home and we can be together. Uh-huh. And if he didn't go to the gym and didn't keep himself in shape, then she'd be bitching because he's getting man boobs or belly. You see your friends, but complain that I'm taking away time from us when I want to see my friends. I really need this to do this spa thing. I don't want to be comatose a few days. It's just one weekend. I told her I had to go to work. We'll talk about more later. She said she had to tell the girls if she's coming or not, and I shrugged and left. Bro, this is not working. I know you know this. As this is obviously you're reflecting on what happened, but see guys, see the direction this is going in here? He goes on, the idea of Janet going away for the weekend without me really bothered me. Weekends were the only time we had together. The discussion of her friend's open marriage, plus her not being at the bar when she said she was suspicious enough. And why didn't you really confront her on that? Why didn't you really give her hell about that? I mean, come on here. Janet going away for the weekend for a girls' trip really pushed me over the edge. Was Janet actually cheating on me? How to find out? Dude, come on here. I know you know this now, but for God's sakes, we all know. Too many red flags. You were too lackadaisical and easy with her. If I confronted Janet, she'd lie, and I really didn't have anything but my suspicions. Hiring a PA will be expensive, but something I might need to do. Bro, guys have written in their stories to me and have told me how they hired a PI, and even though what the PI found was heartbreaking, they said it was the best money they ever spent. But if you're going to confront her, you got to get evidence, one way or another. Just keep that in mind, gentlemen. Before I do that, I figured maybe I'd get into her phone or iPad, seeing who she's talking to and messaging. I have never snooped in her phone, but have absolutely no qualms about doing that. If Janet is cheating, she has no rights. Hey, open phone policy, that's what you should have. So then Monday night, Janet was at work, and when I got home, the only time I've ever been in her phone and iPad is when she got her new phone. I set up her email and connected her phone to her iPad so she could send and receive text on her iPad through her iPhone. She had given me her 6-digit PIN to the iPad. What was it? I think it was 123456. What is this, Spaceballs? Y'all know what I'm talking about with the code to get into planet Druidia? 1, 2, 3, 4. With Dark Helmet's like, that's the stupidest combination I've ever heard in my life. Janet had her phone with her at work, but her iPad was in the living room. She hadn't changed the passcode. I opened it, and I had at least 6 hours home alone with her iPad before Janet got off work. That's her fucking passcode, 123456. Hacker's dream come true. I started by looking through her social media. There's not much. On Facebook, there are pictures of our wedding and honeymoon. Some of her and me out to dinner with her parents. I scrolled through her email, all mail, and deleted folders. There wasn't anything suspicious. I went to look at her texts. It was all there, text with me, her parents, and with coworkers. Dude, she's slick. She's going to cover up her tracks. Look for other apps that may be hidden, you know? WhatsApp or whatever. There were a ton of texts with her coworker Ellen. Aha! Open marriage Ellen. Ellen's the one with the open marriage, and even more texts with some guy named Sid. Sid? Here we go. All the texts between Janet and Ellen were during work hours. There were hundreds of texts between Janet and Sid, and most of their texts were also during work hours. That is unfucking acceptable. Who's fucking Sid? You never heard of Sid before, and should be talking to Sid. You're not talking to some chick named Sally, are you? The text with Sid and Ellen began about 4 months ago when Janet started working in the lab. Around the time she brought up the open marriage. I opened the text with Sid. They started by discussing who's all going to lunch and when. Then they evolved into when Janet and Sid should plan a lunch alone together. Then some flirting. Mostly Sid telling Janet how wonderful she is in every way. Lots of comments about Janet's figure, especially her boobs and her butt. This is a fucking coworker? You kidding me? Bro, all this stuff, this is grounds to, lawyer, see ya. But also how beautiful she was. Then Janet and Sid had a 2-day discussion which involved Janet telling Sid they can never do that again. Never do what again, Sid? She's married and loves her husband. If Sid doesn't stop, that will be the end of their friendship. It became clear that what they can never do again is kiss. Sid had grabbed and kissed Janet in one of the blood collection rooms that he claims in the text. And he claims she kissed him back. Janet didn't deny kissing him, but told him it can't happen again. Around this time, she began to disparage Janet's husband. Sid began to disparage Janet's husband. Her response was to tell Sid that she loves Richard. Her husband is much better man than Sid will ever be. She won't listen to Sid and say anything bad about Richard. This was about 3 months ago and things with Janet started to change. This is all stuff from the text, Richard and all that. After 2 days and never again texts about their kissing, there was a whole bunch of texts about how she just can't help herself. Sid's such a good kisser, but it can't go any further than some kissing. No harm in that. It just helps pass the time. Helps pass the time when the jaw's from kissing. Something to do when they're not busy. Then Janet gave Sid the first of many, many BJs. Bro, I'm sorry. Take pictures of this, collect the evidence, and that's it. Divorce the bitch. Then their first time having sex. Also in a back room in the lab. Then Janet tells him that she can't get caught. She loves her husband and doesn't want him to find out. No more sex at work, even if it's late and there's no one around. Well, this is a stereotype about hospitals and people hooking up in the side rooms and back rooms and lab rooms and all that. We've heard it. A manager or security guard could show up at any time. She didn't want to explain to her husband that she was fired because she was caught with her pants down banging Sid in the back of the lab. From now on, just BJs when the door is locked. Oh, she's so nice. Sid replied that he's happy with BJ's, but suggests that Janet come to his apartment during the day when her husband's at work. Janet's response was, can't wait to do it in bed. Sorry, dude. Again, they bring up open marriages. There's a reason. She says to him that your place better be clean. This is followed by a lot of texts from Janet complaining to Sid that she won't come to his apartment unless he does some cleaning. At least change the sheets when he knows that she's going to be there. His dirty apartment became such a problem that Janet suggested that they hook up at her place. And that's what they've been doing. Having sex in my bed 3 to 4 times a week while I'm at work. That takes it to a whole new level. It's bad enough she's cheating, but then in your own apartment, in your own bed, no mercy. This is some Cobra Kai shit, no fucking mercy. Strike first, strike hard, no mercy, sir. Sid's apartment wasn't so dirty that Janet didn't mind meeting there instead, going for drinks with the coworkers after work when she had a Saturday shift. Risky but exciting. Sid was also able to persuade Janet that they were safe having sex in the lab. So they continued to do that, along with the BJs, and after a while, they became more adventurous. Evidently, Janet was no longer concerned about getting caught, or at least needed more excitement. Recently, the text between them and Sid mostly discussed her upcoming girl spa weekend. The spa was Sid's apartment, and the co-worker would be Janet. While I was going through their conversation, there appeared live text between the two of them. They were too busy with the lab stuff for a quickie, so they were back and forth about how late Janet could stay after their shift ended. Remember, he's reading stuff on her iPad, seeing her messages, and she's at work. A lot of their interactions are chronicled in text. Sid seemed to get off by Janet describing how much he loves his pants, or his parts, and what she wants to do to her. Janet seems to sense the sort of stuff turns him on and details in her text everything she enjoys. Or maybe Sid thinks that having her describe their interactions turns Janet on. Or maybe they have 8-hour work shifts to kill and sexting passes the time. Whatever, but they seem to write up about their hookups almost as much as they have them. Their hookups seem to be pretty vanilla, but they both seem to be enjoying themselves. I then went to her text with coworkers. I wanted to see if the coworker who told me Janet left the bar for home had texted Janet to warn her that I was looking for her. Good idea, dude. But I don't remember the coworker's name. I scanned through Janet's texts with coworkers until I found one to Janet the time I left the bar. Oh my God. Well, guys, this is a good time to wrap up part 1. I'm going to take a break, and then I'm going to publish part 2 in a couple hours after this, and you can see where things really go. But once again, open marriages, they bring it up. It's over. Don't waste your time trying to benefit the doubt or anything like that. Every time. But anyhow, guys, I'll see you in a few hours.